This is Mac OS Ken.
Another record quarter for Apple. It is Friday, the 1st of November, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Incogni, helping you take back your personal data. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Remember that stuff we ended with yesterday? No, not about the Mark Wahlberg movie. I mean the expectations from analysts that had Apple reporting fourth quarter revenue of about $94.4 billion on earnings per share of about $1.57. Apple beat both. Kind of. In its customary earnings press release, the company said it posted quarterly revenue of $94.9 billion. That was up 6% year over year, beat expectations by roughly $500 million, and set a new September quarter revenue record. Earnings per share, yet those need an asterisk. While the street was looking for earnings per share of about $1.57, Apple reported earnings per share of 97 cents. Hey, didn't I say Apple beat on both revenue expectations and earnings per share? No, I said kind of. Under the star-shaped asterisk is this from Apple. Diluted earnings per share was $1.64, up 12% year over year, when excluding the one-time charge recognized during the fourth quarter of 2024 related to the impact of the reversal of the European General Court's state aid decision. It is those billions in euros Apple eventually had to pay to Ireland. Without that, the company would have beaten earnings per share expectations handily. Diving into September quarter segments, Apple CEO Tim Cook said iPhone grew in every geographic segment, setting a September quarter revenue record of $46.2 billion, up 6% from the same quarter a year ago. Apple's short-timer CFO Luca Maestri had the device setting revenue records in several markets, including the Middle East, South Asia, South Korea, and the U.S. iPhone's active installed base hit all-time highs, both for the planet and in every geographic segment Apple tracks. Indications from Kantar list iPhone as the September quarter's top-selling phone in Australia, urban China, Japan, the UK, and here in the States. And iPhone people are happy people. 451 Research shows satisfaction with the device at 98% here in the U.S. Moving to the Mac, revenue for the September quarter hit $7.7 billion, up 2% from the same quarter in 2023. CFO Maestri says that growth was driven by strength in the MacBook Air line. The installed base for Apple's computer reached an all-time high. Roughly half the people who bought a Mac last quarter were new to the Mac, and they, too, will be happy. Customer satisfaction in the state stands at 95%, according to 451 Research. Over to iPad, where CEO Cook says revenue for the Fondle Slab came in at $7 billion, up 8% versus the same quarter last year. While ownership grew in developed markets, CFO Maestri says iPad saw strong performance in many emerging markets, with double-digit growth in Brazil, India, Mexico, the Middle East, and South Asia. Sounding totes similar to the Mac, Apple's tablet reached an all-time high in terms of installed base, with over half of the people buying one for the first time. And folks in the States like them more than Macs, but tiny bit less than iPhone. Customer satisfaction with iPad in the U.S. stands at 97%, according to 451. Whether at home or on the go, there's tech for the masses in the wearables, home, and accessories category. There was also a little less revenue. That came in at $9 billion, down 3% versus the same quarter a year earlier. while CEO Cook waxed rhapsodic about the neat new Apple Watch Series 10, watchOS 11, AirPods 4, and the new hearing health features in AirPods Pro 2, Maestri had less to say. Staying focused on Apple Watch, the CFO said the installed base for the chronometer hit a new all-time high, with more than half of buyers last quarter buying their first one. And people do dig. 451 Research puts customer satisfaction at 96% for Apple Watch here in the States. While I left out mention of Apple Vision Pro, Mr. Cook did not, pointing out the 1.5 million compatible apps for Vision OS 2, the 2,500 plus native apps built for the device, and the scripted short Submerged made for Vision Pro. The CEO also teased where it's going next. Like, physically. On the call, Cook mentioned something I didn't have time to get to yesterday. A number of sites, including Mac Rumors, had Apple saying Wednesday that the special spatial computer will hit South Korea and the UAE 2 weeks from today, Friday, the 15th of November. We go now to Wall Street's darling and the bane of many an Apple fan's existence. I refer to services. They had an all-time revenue record of $25 billion, according to CEO Cook, up 12% from the September quarter of 2023. In his opening remarks, CFO Maestri said that Apple's installed base of active devices reached an all-time high across all products and geographic segments. That growth sets a solid foundation for the future expansion of Apple's ecosystem, with Apple seeing increased customer engagement with its services offerings, according to Maestri. Paid accounts grew double digits, hitting an all-time high. Paid subscriptions also grew double digits, hitting over 1 billion, more than double the number Apple had 4 years ago. As had been expected, yesterday's call was confirmed as the last one for its current CFO. Maestri is stepping back from that job, with Kevin Parekh taking the title. Handing off to Maestri, CEO Cook said he wanted to take a moment to recognize Maestri's extraordinary service as Apple CFO and to thank him for his partnership. In his 10 years in the role, said Cook, Luca has done truly exceptional work in shaping Apple as we know it today. He has helped manage Apple for the long term, thoughtfully and deliberately. He has helped us enrich the lives of so many around the world, and he has been a leader that people look up to and have learned so much from. I have incredible confidence in our incoming CFO, Kevin Parekh, and we look forward to more of you meeting and working with him going forward. Speaking of going forward, Maestri finished his prepared remarks with thoughts on the December quarter. The firm's still coloring, not offering guidance. Mr. Maestri says Apple's expecting December quarter revenue to grow low to mid-single digits year over year. Services revenue should grow double digits, similar to fiscal year 2024 performance, and gross margins should come in at a crazy 46 to 47%. Also, here's a quarter. Apple's board of directors has set a cash dividend of 25 cents per share payable on the 14th of November to shareholders of record on the 11th of November. And with that, the call was open to questions. We'll get to those in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Incogni, helping you take back your personal data. Take it back from whom? From data brokers, companies who compile info about all of us, then sell it. It can be used to target us with ads, to decide some insurance rates, sometimes even to steal our identities. Work to stop it with Incogni. Make an account, give them permission to work on your behalf, and Incogni goes to work. Might feel weird giving them your info, but your info's already out there. Incogni's helping you take it back. They deal with the data brokers, asking for your info to be pulled and addressing any objections, and They keep doing it, since a lot of data brokers might ditch your info only to start building a file on you again. Checking my personal Incogni dashboard, they have sent over 180 removal requests on my behalf, saving me close to 85 hours of work that I wouldn't even know how to start. Let them do the same for you. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Get up to 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. They've got plans for individuals, as well as plans to cover friends and family, and they come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. INCOGNI. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. When last we left the call, Apple executives indicated that they were going to answer questions from analysts. You wouldn't know it from the first exchange. It had Goldman Sachs analyst Michael Ng asking for feedback on Apple Intelligence, both from users and developers. Apple CEO Tim Cook could have said no if he didn't want to answer the question. Instead, he talked about what came out earlier this week in iOS 18.1, what's coming out in iOS 18.2, and plans for expanding beyond US English. And believe it or not, Mr. Ng said, "Thank you very much." Okay, there was one bit of news in Cook's answer that might be construed as an actual answer. According to the CEO, iOS 18.1 adoption is twice as fast as the 17.1 adoption was in the year-ago quarter. That indicates to Cook that there is definitely interest out there for Apple Intelligence, which is sort of feedback, I guess. Morgan Stanley analyst Eric Woodring asked a really interesting question about wait times for iPhone 16. They're shorter this year than the last 4 years. He wondered whether that was tied to, world events over the last 4 years. COVID, supply chain disruptions caused by COVID. CEO Cook said Apple tries to get iPhone supply and demand in balance as soon as they can. When you don't have things like supply chain disruptions caused by COVID, that's easier to do. We've been constrained in October, said the CEO, but we believe that soon we'll be out of constraint, and so that's a good sign from our point of view. Melius analyst Ben Reitzes wanted to know what Tim Cook's excited about that investors and analysts might be missing. The CEO said he is super stoked over Apple Intelligence, though, he's working on future releases. But those, he says, are changing his daily life. But he's getting emails about the hearing aid functionality in AirPods Pro 2. He's excited about the sleep apnea notifications that'll start rolling in. He's excited about the new Macs coming out next week. Basically, he's too excited to worry about what has naysayers worried. B of A analyst Wamsi Mohan wondered how Apple might be preparing for any tariffs that might come with a new presidential administration. Said CEO Cook, I wouldn't want to speculate about those sorts of things, so I'm going to punt on that one. One of the things that analysts have been most excited about when it comes to Apple Intelligence are ways that it might be monetized. Trying to get at how that might go was TD Cowen analyst Krish Sankar. Specifically, can Apple Intelligence spur the growth rate for services? CEO Cook pointed out that APIs are out for developers and that more are on the way. And so he said, I definitely believe that a lot of developers will be taking advantage of Apple Intelligence in a big way, and what that does to services, I'll not forecast. But I would say that from an ecosystem point of view, I think it will be great for the user and the user experience. Plenty more where that came from, of course. If you want to read the words once spoken, 6 Colors is my go-to for transcriptions of the calls these days. If you'd rather hear it, the call is up on Apple's investor site and will be for the next couple of weeks. It's also available as a podcast, and it's even available to listen to on the phone, which is amazingly anachronistic. Early reactions from analysts are similar to last-minute expectations. They're pleased with the better-than-expected September results and concerned about lackluster guidance for December. We'll go deeper on analyst reaction next week. This week on the checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. Before this spring, I had never heard of Change Healthcare. I've also never been a client of United Health. And yet I have been caught in their gargantuan data breach. Got to learn all about credit freezes this week. Learning I will share with you. Look for checklist number 398, The More Things Change, available today at securemac.com/checklist or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan with code macOSKen at incogni.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Once again, this does conclude today's conference. We do appreciate your participation.